Hi guys. So last class we did discuss about how we can create components, and we gave an example of a login component, and we also saw an example of our hello component. And we did see that we can use components inside components because components are just tags. So the way you can use HTML tag wherever you want, you can also use one tag inside and another tag, like you see in this example. There is a div tag, and then you also have a h1 tag inside a div tag. Similarly, you can also keep your own components inside components. Like inside this hello component code, you are also using the login component. Now we will just remove these components from our application, and then today we will try to create a new component, which is counter component. So let's understand how we can create a counter component. So the drill is the same, guys. To create a counter component, we again will need to first create a file. So let me again summarize for you. We want to create a counter component. Okay. And in this counter component, we should be able to increase the count, decrease the count, and we should be able to also reset the count. Correct? So now, to do this counter component, the drill will be the same. For counter component, we'll need to create a function called counter inside a file called counter. So we will start now. First, I will create a file called counter.js and keep it in the source folder. So this is my counter.js, and I'm saving it inside the source folder. Then I'm going to create a function called counter, and I'll create a variable called count and give it initial value of 0, because we know we can also declare variables inside a component, and we can also write functions, of course. Then we'll return, and this time we will have a div, and within this div I'm going to write count equal to count variable, which is count. Now, as we discussed, we can print variables inside our HTML with a curly brace. Even any JavaScript code can be written within this curly brace, and this curly brace is called an expression. Now, next thing, we will also like to have buttons to increase and decrease the count. So we will write a button now. Increase, and one button to decrease. Right? Now we will add an on-click event. So for on-click event, we will need to add the required function. So we'll write function increase, function, increase, and then function decrease. Simple. So inside the increase function, we will write count equal to count plus 1, and inside the decrease function, we'll write count equal to count minus 1. Okay. Now I will also add another function called display count. We will understand why do we need it in a short moment. And I'm just going to write an alert count. So we have three functions: increase to increase the count, decrease to decrease the count, display count to display the value of the count in an alert. Next thing, I'm going to, of course, add an event handler called onClick with C capital. We already know that the next value is capital. So on O is small and C is capital. And here I'm going to write here increase. Same thing for decrease. And I'm going to add one more button, display count. And in this, I'm going to add an event handler, that onClick handler, which is going to point to the function display count, which we have created just now. And then after that, we are going to export default counter so that we can use it in our app component. You can see the code. It is very similar and very simple to what we have done before. Go to the app.js, we'll import counter from counter file ./counter, because it's in the same folder where we have our app.js file. And then I'm going to use my counter, close it. Okay, save it, and let us see now the output of the application. So let's open the browser and see how my application looks like. So let me just save the file. And okay, so it's just loading right now. And yes, we have a count equal to 0, increase, decrease, and display count. So we will make small change in our component. I don't like the count the way it is visible. So what I'm going to do is in my counter component, let me just open the counter component. I will keep this inside a h1 heading tag, or maybe h3 is better. So inside the heading 3, level 3, h3, I'm going to keep my count h3 and close h3 and close this. This should be B. I might have done some typo. And now let us see our application. Good. So let me try to increase. Okay. I increased it twice, but you can see that there is no change in this count. Well, the question is why there will be a change? There will not be any change because we are not refreshing the application. And there is no mechanism for me. There is no mechanism for me to refresh the UI. So one way to find out whether the count has increased or not is by calling the display count, which will actually alert the value, as you can see here. So let me try to click on the display count. And when I click on the display count, yes, the value is increasing. But the problem is it is not visible in the UI. If I decrease, so previously it was 2 minus 1, it should be 1. And it is also visible here as 1. I can further decrease 3 times, which means it should become minus 2. And yes, sorry, minus 3, I did 4 times. So we can see the functionality is working, but the UI is not refreshing, or my HTML is not refreshing, like any other JavaScript application. And that is why we need a special variable called state variable. So now we will understand what is a state variable and how we can use it in our component. So we will now start with a state variable and understand how we can use a state variable. So first thing, I'll just give you a small introduction of state variable. So when we talk about state variable is a variable that is a special type of variable which will refresh the HTML whenever there is a change in it.